So this morning we have Levi Gangi, who is a chaplain and an employee at Rochester General Hospital with Rochester Regional Health. And he's going to be talking today about mindfulness as a spiritual practice for living. Levi has done some other work with Crossroads of Caring, presenting didactics on spirituality groups, and also for a time serving on our professional advisory committee. And I'm going to let Levi introduce himself a little bit more. Levi, if you need to, you'd be able to share the screen, but just real quick, we had 6 people registered, so there may be some other people jumping in, but Jackie and Greg, maybe you can just briefly say who you are and where you're from. And Jackie, why don't you go first?
Sure. Good morning again, everyone. Jackie Dozier, Common Ground Health. I'm the program manager for our community engagement department. Huge community advocate as well.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jackie.
Hi, and I'm Greg Kramer. I'm the pastor of St. George's Episcopal Church out in Hilton. Went through CPE with Marianne as part of my ordination process. So happy to be here. Very interested in mindfulness.
Good, welcome.
Thank you.
And as Marianne said, my name is Levi, and I'm not in a chaplain role at the moment, but I am a board certified chaplain. Have done that for about 10 years, and right now I'm in a performance improvement coordinator role for behavioral health, working with psychiatric patients, and doing a lot of staff support, crisis debriefing for Rochester Regional Health as well. And so it's a privilege to be asked today to talk about mindfulness. The first thing I want to say is that I am no expert in mindfulness. I'm not going to pretend to be John Kabat-Zinn or, have done extensive training and research. However, I believe I've come a long way since I began, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But I don't have a slideshow to share or anything. I just kind of wanted to talk about mindfulness a little bit, and then do a little practice together, maybe have some dialogue. I see we have another couple other folks joining us. So see if they want to introduce themselves as well.
Do you want to call on them, Levi?
Sure.
How would you like to do?
Yep, looks like Lynette and Martha just joined us. So either of you, if you want to introduce yourself and where you're participating from.
Good morning. This is Martha Hope, and I'm with Senior Expressions Incorporated, and I'm representing Senior Expressions.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lynette. I'm Lynette Robinson, and I am a CPE graduate from the first class, and also it's good to see you, Guy. It's good to, you remember. So I do.
Yes.
Yeah, you remember me from the symposium, the caregiver symposium,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, we met a few times. And so that's what I'm here to take care of the caregivers, right? I don't know why I'm in CPE, but I am in CPE. I just follow the rules that God sends to me. And and that's what he said to me, and this is where I am, and it's great. I feel really good about it. I really am not sure what I'm doing, but as long as I follow the instructions that are sent to me through my spirit, I'm good.
Thanks, Lynette. And caring for the caregiver, that is, I have to say, that's the most rewarding part of my job. Not that I don't love working with patients. I've done that for many years, patients and families, but doing staff support for my colleagues, for and just helping people stay resilient is something I really am passionate about. So yeah, so welcome everybody. And the first question before I start pontificating and, going into all kinds of stuff is, I'd like to see what anybody here, if you have experience in mindfulness or any kind of meditation, doesn't have to be meditation, but just if you, when someone says mindfulness, what comes to mind for you? Have you done any practices in the past? Do you have any current practice? Do you have, is mindfulness a foreign concept to you? Just kind of want to go around and see people's experience or kind of their perception of when someone says mindfulness. So I'll start with Jackie.
Yes, I have had some experience and hi, Miss Martha. Hi, Lynette. Good to see you.
Hey, hi.
I remember Levi too. When I saw his name, I
Hi.
was like, that name sounds familiar. So, yes, I have been in a few circles where we focused on mindfulness. So I am familiar with the concept. Yes.
Hey, thank you. And Lynette.
So, I'm not sure if I've experienced mindfulness as you would teach us today or explain to us today, but I do know that I carry with me my book, Acts of Faith, and that is my mindfulness. This is one of my Bibles, so to speak, and my mindfulness is to help people to be able to, be mindful of themselves and of others, to be able to take care of themselves and take care of others. That's my mindfulness.
Okay, thanks, Lynette. And Martha.
Well, I've had some training in spiritual counseling, and I got involved with that as a part of my church at one time. So, and I haven't practiced in a little while. I do have certification. So mindfulness means for me to be able to connect to other people and help them go through whatever it is that they're going through at the time, and whatever I can do to compensate or help them with that journey. That's what mindfulness means to me. And it means taking care of myself too. So that's about it for me.
Okay, thanks, Martha. And Greg.
Great, thank you. I'm intrigued and interested. I don't really feel like I formally know what mindfulness is exactly about, though I do practice kind of a regular a meditative practice most mornings, where I'm just trying to be present to what is, and I'm imagining somehow it's connected to that, being mindful of just what is, and open and accepting. So I'm curious to find out what you have to enhance my own prayer life.
That's great. Thanks, Greg. And Marianne, did you want to say anything about your experience?
I've experienced mindfulness through my students, for sure. There are some that practice that and had some minimal probably training in it. I kind of look at it the same way Greg does, as mindfulness as a practice of being in the present moment and non-judgmental acceptance of what's happening in that moment.
Good, thank you. Thanks for sharing everyone's experience. And like I said in the beginning, I'm not a guru or some sort of expert in mindfulness. However, I believe I've come a long way. And where I started was back when I took CPE. This was back in about 2011. And I remember the first time I was introduced to mindfulness meditation, boy, I couldn't have been less interested. I have never thought of myself as like a, kind of a touchy-feely person, or like, I think of like new age concepts. My skeptic brain just comes up. And so when I was introduced to the concept of mindfulness, like there's a quote that I saw in a mindfulness manual where it said, participants may think, I have real problems to deal with. How is sitting here and meditating supposed to help? And that was kind of my perspective, like, well, how could this be helpful? And as I just kind of submitted the process and started to practice, I realized just how distracted my mind is. And a common example is if you've ever been in a conversation with somebody, say maybe you're at a family reunion or someone, is talking to you at work, or a friend is on the phone with you and they're saying a whole bunch of stuff. And after a minute, you realize you haven't heard a word that they're saying because your mind is somewhere totally else. And it could be embarrassing, but it's also probably not uncommon because we live in a world that is, and I'm going to throw an acronym out there called PAID, P-A-I-D, a paid reality. We're pressured, always on, information overload, and distracted. And these are kind of external forces that we don't have a lot of control over. So we're pressured. We have different levels of pressure: work, family, society, always on. I mean, there's like 7 different ways someone could get a hold of me right now if they wanted to try to get a hold of me: email, cell phone, texting. I don't have much social media anymore, but if I, there's a lot of people who do. And so, kind of this mindset that we're always available, always expected to be, to be paying attention. Information overload. So, you can't go into any building without seeing the news or a TV on. There's 17,000 different opinions about every, situation that's going on in the world. And it can be overwhelming. And that's just the world that we live in. And then distracted. I think, distraction is something that in our modern world has become a reality. In the workplace, like I said, people can always get a hold of us. There's been studies done on, just the effect on the human brain of all the notifications we get on our phone. And so our minds are very much, sometimes we get on autopilot and we're just kind of going throughout our day, going from one thing to the next, one distraction to the next. And I know that I've been in groups before with people, and maybe it's a group discussion or something, and maybe there's a period of silence, and somebody inevitably always says, "All right, I can't stand the silence. I got to say something." And that's just it's part of human nature, but part of it is in silence, we're aware of our internal feelings, where we start to become aware of maybe our discomfort. Maybe there's something in our lives that we don't want to look at, or we just, we're just used to being stimulated, distracted, kind of scrolling information. And when that isn't there, there's a discomfort that arises. And so mindfulness as a practice, there's many different ways to practice mindfulness, and I'll say a little bit about that. But mindfulness as a practice is coming back to just being present in the moment and giving yourself freedom to be present in the moment. And the point of mindfulness is not to kind of get to this point, this level of connectedness to where you're levitating and you're totally disengaged from reality. Mindfulness as a practice is meant to help you be more present in your daily lives. So when people are talking to you, when you're with your family, when you're with clients, when you're doing something simple like washing the dishes or folding clothes, that instead of constantly being somewhere else in your mind, whether it's in the future, ruminating on the past, maybe ruminating on worries, you're just able to be where you are. And it sounds like such a simple concept, but it really is in our modern world, it takes a lot of practice. So a couple of definitions of mindfulness, and you can just, go to Google and say mindfulness definition, and you'll get a whole bunch of stuff that comes up. But I want to throw in a couple of definitions from people a lot smarter than me of mindfulness. Probably the most famous one is from a teacher named Jon Kabat-Zinn, who piloted the mindfulness-based stress reduction program back in the late 70s. And mindfulness as a clinical intervention began for people with chronic pain. So mindfulness as a concept has been around for centuries. There's been, different religious teachings, meditative teachings that kind of correspond with mindfulness. But mindfulness as a clinical intervention or as a secular intervention began with mindfulness-based stress reduction for people with chronic pain, people who they had pain that they couldn't get rid of. They didn't want to take a bunch of drugs or get addicted to opioids, and they just wanted to relate to their pain differently so that they could live a quality of life. And so his trainings continue. There's a whole center for mindfulness where you can take a lot of different courses. But his definition for mindfulness is the awareness that arises from paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally. And I'll say that one more time. The awareness that arises from paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. And there's a lot of different aspects to that. Literally, if you just Google mindfulness definition, that's probably the first one that comes up. So if you want to do that after this meeting, you're more than welcome to do that. And then there's another definition that I actually like. It's a little bit more a little bit less abstract. Comes from a mindfulness toolbox book by a licensed professional counselor named Donald Altman. And he says, mindfulness is a powerful, scientifically proven medicine for breaking free from harmful emotional ruts and mindless habits in order to live with full awareness and greater freedom. A powerful, scientifically proven medicine for breaking free from harmful emotional ruts and mindless habits in order to live with full awareness and greater freedom. And the reason he says scientifically proven is because there has been many, many studies that show that mindfulness practice can have a positive impact on your life, can raise your level of happiness, can help you in your relationships. As I said, I'm no expert on it, but if you just did a little bit of internet searching, you'll find a lot of clinical studies, mindfulness in healthcare, in the workplace. Where I began to get really excited about mindfulness was working with psychiatric inpatients. And right now I work on the inpatient unit at Rochester General Hospital called G1 for inpatient psychiatric patients. And when I first thought about doing a meditation with acute inpatients, I thought, there's no way that you're going to get people who are actively psychotic, schizophrenic, are not psychiatrically stable to participate in a guided meditation. And what I've found is just the opposite. It's very rare that I have to ask somebody to leave during a meditation. On a daily basis, I run a group where we do 5 to 6 to 7 minute breathing meditations. And what I found is that they're not only able to participate, but they find a lot of value, and it helps them to connect to each other as human beings, not as patients, not as people with mental illness, but just to be present and find freedom in being present during that meditation. And so at this point, I've probably run it's probably approaching 1,000 mindfulness sessions for patients, for staff members, in different settings. And I just find it to be a really powerful intervention. And so talking about practice. So, I'm talking about mindfulness practice. What is mindfulness practice? So the ultimate goal of mindfulness is to help us be more present in our daily lives. If I'm walking down the street and Jackie comes up to me and, hey, Levi, and wants to have a short conversation, instead of me being caught up in everything I'm going to do, or I have done, or distracted by everything around me, I want to, the person that I am, I want to be present to what Jackie's telling me, to remember what she says, to connect with her in that brief moment. And we might have 50 of those moments throughout our day. And so how do we give ourselves the freedom to be present? But the practice of mindfulness is kind of what I like to think about as like a mental, like going to the gym for our mental well-being. And so there's many different ways to practice mindfulness, but what I usually use is what's called a breathing meditation. And one thing I wondered when I started leading mindfulness was why are people so obsessed with the breath? When you hear like, oh, just breathe, and we're going to do a breathing meditation and focus on your breath, why is the breath such a big intervention? And what I found is that the breath is something that's always with us. So we're constantly breathing, as long as we're alive, we're breathing. So it's also kind of in the center of our being. So our breath travels in through our mouth or our nose, and it's ends up in our lungs and kind of the center of our being. So the act of centering ourselves, the breath is already in the center, and breathing is something that we also don't think about very much. And so through breathing meditation, through mindfulness, we're bringing our attention to the breath intentionally. And what that does, whether we practice mindfulness for 1 minute or, people who get up to an hour of meditation, you're intentionally over and over again, bringing your attention and your focus back to this simple intervention of breathing. You're kind of extending some childlike curiosity to the breath. So you're saying, what does it feel like to breathe? What am I noticing in my body as I'm breathing? And most of the time, we as humans are judging. And judging, has a bad rap in our society right now, being judgmental. But judging is just a way of survival for any species. If you need to cross 390, you are going to look both ways. You're going to judge whether it's safe to cross. If you meet somebody, your instincts are going to tell you, is this a safe person to be talking to? Am I noticing anything out of the ordinary? So we automatically judge situations for our own safety, to make wise decisions. But that judging can be exhausting. It also can pollute a lot of the things that we do in the relationships that we have, because we make judgments to protect ourselves or to kind of come to a conclusion before we've really experienced that situation. And so mindfulness is a way that we can practice a simple, basic intervention like the breath and notice things without judging it. So kind of like returning to a childlike wonder of just noticing. A lot of times people will do a meditation that's focused on something like a flowing stream. So if you're standing by a stream, you're watching the water go by, and you're not trying to stop that water, you're not changing it, you're not trying to judge what that water's doing. You're just noticing what's floating by, you're noticing that stream. And that's kind of what we do with the breath in meditation. You're just noticing this very natural process without judging it. We're going to have a chance to practice that in just a little bit here. We're going to do a short breathing meditation together. But As you do this, and this is what I say to my psychiatric patients when we start doing meditation, about a minute in, you're going to notice that your mind is trying to go in 17 different directions. Maybe you sit here and, okay, I'm going to focus on my breath. And then I think about, I wonder what's for lunch. What is my spouse doing right now? Boy, I have that project that's due. Oh my gosh, I need to stop here after work. Man, how am I going to pay those bills? Hey, my arm itches. I mean, anything that starts to pull our attention away. And so throughout a meditation, it's non-judgmentally bringing our attention back to that point of focus. And for our purposes in this session, it's the breath. So you're saying, yep, there goes my mind. It's thinking about something later on. I'm going to intentionally and non-judgmentally bring it back to the breath. I'm not criticizing myself. I'm not beating myself up for wandering. I'm just saying I'm noticing and returning. That's a big concept in mindfulness, is just notice and return. And as you do this, like I said, it's kind of like a workout. It sounds simple, and it sounds peaceful to kind of, I'm going to sit and meditate and breathe, and it sounds really nice and peaceful, but it's hard. And sometimes it can be downright uncomfortable. Just like working out, if you're in the gym, if you're trying to get stronger and build endurance, there's going to be days when it's pretty uncomfortable, and mindfulness is the same way. But over time, your brain starts to create new pathways. And that's something really exciting that I love to share with psychiatric inpatients, is that up until about 50 years ago, scientists thought that we could not change the brain. Once you become an adult, once your brain is fully formed, how you are is how you're stuck. You're not really going to do a lot to change the way you think. But we know now that that's not true. With the science of helping people who struggle with addiction, with just creating new habits, with cognitive behavioral therapy, things like that, we know that we can change the brain. We can take, old pathways that have been strengthened, whether it's just that dopamine pathway that tells you to pick up your phone and look at the next message. And we can create new ones. And mindfulness is one way of creating a little bit of space in between the stimulus and the reaction. So, if you're talking to somebody and your phone beeps, your instant reaction is to pick up your phone and look at it. And through doing something like a mindfulness meditation, maybe you create that 5-second window where your phone beeps and you say, okay, wait, I'm coming back. I'm noticing that I'm distracted. Wait, but I'm standing here and I'm talking to Jackie. I'm just going to stay with Jackie and let that distraction go. And it sounds like a simple example, but I think about the power that can have in our daily lives to help us be more present with each other. And mindfulness is one way that we can do that. As I said, there's been a lot of research that's been done about mindfulness in many different areas. And one way of helping, especially folks in behavioral health, or folks in the places where you work, and maybe yourself, you can relate to this, but there's a concept called automatic negative thoughts, or ANTS. And if you Google ANTS, ANTS, automatic negative thoughts, what happens is a lot of us just, like I said, it goes back to that judgmental mind, right? So we just, I might walk up to somebody, or I might experience a situation and I automatically judge it. And then that's my conclusion about that. And we do this with ourselves too. So, presented with a problem, presented with a new situation, presented with unexpected news, we kind of automatically react to that. And it's a weird phenomenon, but the way that our minds go to a negative place so quickly is a weird phenomenon of human behavior. There's a lot of research out there for people who have voice hearing. So people who have the psychiatric illness of, some schizoaffective, but they're hearing voices. I think about 90 to 95% of those voices are saying negative things to the people. And that's a weird phenomenon. Why would this voice be telling me to kill myself, be telling me to harm myself, be telling me that I'm worthless? And that's just kind of where our brains gravitate to automatically, is these negative thoughts. And so a lot of research has been done to be able to use mindfulness as a skill in our lives so that we don't automatically go to the negative. If you've ever come into work on a Monday morning and you ask someone how they're doing and their response is, it's another Monday. And when I hear that, I think you're already expecting bad things to happen. You're basically waiting to open the door and the flood comes in, and you're kind of, and it's a defensive mechanism. It's a way of protecting ourselves by automatically expecting bad things to happen. But that changes our disposition. It changes the way we react with each other. A couple different definitions of mindfulness that maybe are a little bit more down to earth or grounded. So just getting freed from habit and reactivity, an open-hearted acceptance of this moment, saying, you know what, this moment might not be pleasant. I might not be feeling great in this moment, but I'm deciding to just be present where I'm at so that I can cope with what I'm dealing with. Finding our center, an awareness that doesn't take sides. And boy, I couldn't, in a world right now where there is such a dichotomy and people with, everyone can make their opinion known 17 different ways, finding an awareness and a centeredness that doesn't take sides and that doesn't create boundaries and rifts between people, I think can be so important. And mindfulness can help us do that. So another way of talking about mindfulness is just, saying paying attention. Mindfulness can sound clinical. It can sound like, oh, this is, can't wrap my head around a concept of mindfulness yet. But if you just think, okay, what's going to help me pay attention to what I'm doing? Mindfulness is a concept that can do that. There are many different apps that you can use if you say, hey, I'd like to try this mindfulness meditation thing. I'd like to see what other resources are out there. There's a couple different apps. If you, once again, go to Google and Google mindfulness apps, Calm, Headspace, Insight Timer. They have a lot of free resources, and any emotion you could think of. If you say, you know what, I want to do a quick meditation that talks about anxiety. I want to do a quick meditation that talks about family strife. You're going to find it. And so there's a lot of different resources out there on mindfulness if you would like to learn more. So I have been talking a lot. I want to open it up to see if anybody has any feedback at this point, questions, clarifications before we dive into a little mindfulness practice.
Levi, if somebody wanted to start a mindfulness practice, what's a time limit that you would suggest?
Sure, that's a great question. 5 minutes. I would say 5 minutes is a good place to start. And it's amazing how long 5 minutes can seem if you try to do a meditation, but I would say that 5 minutes is kind of a good, it's not too short, and it's also not too long. And that's probably a good, and they have a lot of different, like I said, once again, you can have an app or find something on the internet that'll give you a little timer. You can set it for 5 minutes, and then it'll give you a little gentle reminder when it's over. And yeah, I think 5 minutes is a good place to start. Anybody else have any questions or feedback at this moment?
This is Martha Levi. I certainly can relate to the breathing, and I do our early meditation. It's not as long as I would like it to be. And sometimes I get frustrated, if that makes any sense, that I'm trying to do it longer than the 5-6 minutes or whatever that you just mentioned. And I said, why can't I just do it a little longer? But it does relax me. And I find that I have to get out of bed. If that makes sense, I have to get out of bed. And sometimes I just sit there. There's a chair in my room. And I just sit there with my hands and arms on the armrest. And that's where I do my breathing. And I don't even open the blinds yet. I just kind of sit there for a few minutes. But again, I try to force myself, and maybe that's what I should not be doing, is to force myself to move to that extra 5 minutes or whatever. Just let it kind of come on its own, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And what a fantastic way to start your day, because you're starting your day being instead of doing. And I need to take my own advice here. That sometimes, the first thing I get out of bed, I'm looking at my phone.
Yep.
I feel like I gotta accomplish something. And we're not human doings, we're human beings. And so, starting out with, okay, getting out of bed, sitting in that chair, and, once again, bringing a spirit of non-judgment to that. So not beating yourself up for not being able to go past 5 minutes. Maybe you could split it up. So maybe you say, okay, I'm going to stick with the 5 minutes in the morning, and then I'm going to do another 5 minutes, in the evening or after dinner or before bed. And so it doesn't have to be 10, 15, 20 minutes consecutively. You could just do another session later in the day of 5 more minutes, and see how that feels.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thanks for that reminder of, it's just so much pressure to, always be doing something, and just to ignore our core of, who we are as human beings, and reflecting on, if you're a person of faith, saying, okay, like my being is held by my higher power, by God. And it's not because of anything that I'm doing, but I can just be and, face whatever's coming up for me as a human being. Lynette, did you want to share something?
Yes, please. Thank you. So mindfulness, okay, so I have a little bit to say about this, is that being present in the moment. I had to deal with a lot of caregiving issues with my mom until she died. And that brought me to the present. All right. So then after she died, I started working with in a convent with nuns, and I found that being present with them, being present in their space and understanding their space gave me an overwhelming opportunity to be able to assist them with what they needed. Instead of them being so needy, I am able to assist them. So my daily practice is listening to them and being present in their space instead of making it my own. Oh, I don't want you to do this. I want you to go to the bathroom. I want you to wash up. I want you to eat breakfast. Being just taking the time, and it's hard, taking the time to be present with them in their space. So my personal anxiety is still there, right? I come home at night, I still have to deal with my personal anxiety of dealing with two parents that have passed away, and how I feel about that. You know, I can't breathe. I can't
Mhm.
breathe. I can't talk. I can't do anything. And everything is gonna happen. I'm gonna die. And I'm like, and then, you know, and then I go to work, and then the nuns, well, my people that I work with are like, they're dying off daily. And then I have to deal with it. But for some reason, I'm comfortable with that. And then I come home, I'm like, I'm gonna get cancer, I'm gonna die, I can't breathe. And so I need to let everybody know how to take care of me when I get sick. And that's my mindfulness. That's where my mindfulness is that just relax. Just I need to just relax. I need to bring this anxiety down without medication,
Mhm.
because I did go on medication, but I had to stop. I stopped that. I was like, no, this is not the right medicine for me. I need to find the medicine within myself to bring down this anxiety and to help these people that I work with. And don't judge them. I don't need to judge them. I just need to be with them in their space to help them with dementia and all the other health issues that they are suffering from. So notice in return, I notice where they are. I notice what's going on with them, and I return that to the medical professionals and ask them to take care of them. And I found it very much of a I can breathe now situation. And it's okay.
Mhm.
And it's an okay situation for me. They're they're
Wow.
they're in their 80s, 90s, and hundreds, and they're at the end of life.
Mhm.
And I respect that. It's so I can't take that on for me. I just have to be mindful in my mind that I'm not there and I'm not going to die right this minute.
Mhm.
And but I can take care of them. I can still give them the care that they need and be kind and caring
Yeah.
and giving to them.
And that is such a huge gift that you're giving them. And I think you make a great point that in order to be present with people, to, you know, really listen to what they need and offer, offer enough of ourselves to meet them in their need, we have to be able to manage our own anxiety. So your own fear of, you know, or what diseases are going to come up, or what does the future hold for me? I think there's a reason that we can't time travel, right? The only thing we have is this moment. I'm not promised tomorrow. I can't go
Right.
back to yesterday. I'm in this moment. Um, and the more I can make peace with that, the more, like you said, you can really say, okay, what can I do for you today? How can I be present with you? Because I know that I'm okay just today. For today, I'm okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I found that being present with them, I read I have their bios, and there's a couple of people that working with their bios when they're in this dementia state, and it's like really big. It's really a lot. And to get them to be able to move from one place to another within their home, or to just cooperate with you, then I have to go take them to and be be with them in their place. And sometimes I found that their places where they were before the illness came in,
Mhm.
and I talk to them about that, and it works. It
Yeah.
works. It's hard. It's very hard because the listening skills, Marianne, the listening skills, where's Marianne? The listening skills are like unbelievable. And the reflection, and it's like, I learned that in CPE with Marianne. And you gotta listen and you gotta reflect and you gotta understand, but it's just like it's very hard, it's very difficult, but it's getting easier. It's gotten easier as time has gone on, to be able to do that and to make it work. And it works, it really does. So where's Marianne? Let me see. Marianne,
Thank
I just want to say thank you for that. Thank you for CPE, because I certainly learned my listening and my reflection skills, and it works. Oh my God, does it work?
Thanks, Lynette. So we're going to take just a couple of minutes here. We have just a few minutes left in this session. And I just want to lead us through a very simple mindfulness meditation. We'll take about 5 minutes. And then we can, share any reactions to it. But I'm just going to guide us through it. So start off finding a comfortable spot in your chair. And you want to be in an upright position, relaxed, but upright as well. And just feel your feet connected to the floor. Notice your body resting on the chair. And if you want to close your eyes for this meditation, you can. You don't have to. Some people choose to leave their eyes open, find a spot in front of you just to rest your gaze on. And I invite you to start with a couple of long, deep breaths, filling your lungs with air, slowly exhaling back into the world. And as you do this, I'm going to ring the bell to get us started. So as the sound of the bell fades, just allow your breathing to return to its normal rhythm. Just bring your attention to the sensations of the breath. So notice the rise and fall of your chest and shoulders. Notice what it feels like as the air enters your body, through your nose or your mouth. Maybe you notice the temperature of the air as it enters and as it exits your body. You're not trying to change the breath in any way. You're just noticing what it feels like to breathe. As you follow your breath, as we talked about, your mind will start to wander. Maybe you are thinking about how long this meditation is going to go. Maybe you're just aware of some discomfort in your body. Just every time you notice your mind wandering, gently but firmly return your attention to the breathing. Some people find it helpful to place their hand over their chest or abdomen just to kind of follow along with that rise and fall of the breath, stay grounded. And as you breathe, Just notice what's coming up for you. Notice how you're feeling in this moment. Take inventory of what your body position feels like. Once again, all these feelings and sensations might not be comfortable, and that's okay. Just see if you can approach these things that you're noticing with curiosity, without judgment. Just noticing your breath and what's coming up for you with an open hand. And it doesn't matter how many times you get distracted, whether it's 50, 500. The point is that you return to the breath every time your mind wanders, treating these experiences as opportunities to stay present with that simple rhythm of the breath. Part of mindfulness is really just giving ourselves the gift and the permission to be present to our experience in this moment. So just think of yourself as offering yourself a gift of being present. Noticing what's coming up for you, thoughts and feelings, without having to grab onto them or get caught up in them, but just letting them go with an open hand. We'll take about 1 more minute. Just stay with your breathing the best you can. Noticing the rhythm of the inhale and the exhale through your body. As we come to the end of our meditation, just allowing yourself 1 more long, deep breath, filling your lungs with air, slowly exhaling that air back into the world, taking your time. And then when you're ready, bring your attention back to the room. All right, thanks for participating in that. We have about 1 minute or 2 left. Any reactions? Was that easy? Was it hard? Peaceful? Uncomfortable?
It's peaceful for
Go ahead.
Good.
sure. It's lovely just to be present to what is and not worry about what's next or what has been. And for me, it's a spiritual experience. That's kind of the place where God exists for me, or in my tradition, the communion of saints. My brother just passed this weekend. To be there and know that some way his spirit is present too is just a lovely practice.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Greg. That's really powerful.
Thanks.
I was going to say just the spaciousness of it is pretty amazing. And I was thinking back to what Martha had said about how she felt frustrated sometimes, and how hard it can be for me to accept that frustration is just part of the experience and not judge it and not run to thoughts of, man, I'm terrible at this. Oh, it's crappy. Why am I doing this? Like start to doubt myself or question myself. But if I can just sit with the frustration and make a lot of room for it, it goes away.
Yeah, it definitely does.
I get into more trouble trying to chase it off or amp it down.
Yeah, I like to think about it as, waves. It's like the waves gonna come, we're standing in the water's up to our waist, and the wave's gonna come along and rock us around, but it's gonna pass, it's gonna go by. Lynette, anything you wanted to share about that experience? Maybe we put Lynette to sleep, I don't know.
Lynette, you might be muted. I don't see her.
I was going to add somehow, for me, the distractions are part of me. They're part of the being present to what is. That it's like, yeah, some days I'm really distracted, and some days I'm not so distracted, and that's just part of the breathing, of being present to that, and just noticing that is helpful, I think, sometimes too.
Right. Because our natural inclination is to actions or try to stop it, absolutely. And just welcoming that and say, okay, yep, my mind's trying to go over here, and just it's such a big difference between, instead of trying to stop the train, you're just switching tracks. I like that analogy. Lynette, did you want to share your experience?
I'm here.
One more minute.
I got a lot. Yeah. So this is great. So I saw waterfalls with the rocks, with I could walk in the waterfalls. I don't know where it came from, but I was just walking in the waterfalls on the rocks. Yeah. And it was really great, and it's very calming. It's very calming to do that, and I need to do that more because I have a mind that won't stop. And you can say one word to me and it will take my mind from wherever I am into a whole different place. That's where I had my problems in school. Because I never paid attention. I couldn't pay attention because my mind kept drifting off. You say one word and I'm like, oh, you know what? This is a whole different thing.
Yeah.
And my mind was in a whole different place, and I still have that same issue. I still deal with that. And I have my attention span is like kind of lucid. And but this did take me to a very good place, and that I like, because I can deal with other people when I'm in that good place.
Yeah. Thanks, Lynette.
And Levi, we're just about out of time, but I wanted to say thank you. Or do you have any parting words for us? Or
no, just it's there's so many resources out there for mindfulness. One of the things I would say is if you're interested in doing a guided meditation, find a voice that you like. It sounds silly, but there's a lot of voices out there that are you know, it's maybe irritating or too breathy or something, there's so many meditation teachers. If you want to find a guided meditation, find a voice that you like, that you connect with, that relaxes you. And yeah, just find some meditations to do. And I wish you well in your practice. And it's an honor to be with you today.
Thanks, Levi.
Yes, thank you.